What's going on, everyone? So, we're all horror fans. That's why you're here. That's why you watch these videos. That's why you're on the channel. And one of the things that is going around in general, not just in the horror space, but in general, are the Mount Rushmores, right? Oh, this is that Mount Rushmore. This is that Mount Rushmore. Usually you hear it in sports, like who's on the, NBA Mount Rushmore and things like that. But one of the things that's going around right now that I saw in the Mount Rushmore trend is the horror space, right? And obviously we all have our preferences. We all have our kind of like, these are the staples. These are our favorites, right? But I do think that there is just like a pretty standard Mount Rushmore. And then there's like our personal Mount Rushmores, right? So it's what I wanted to talk about in this video. Just a fun conversational video, right? With something like this, there's no right or wrong answers or anything like that. But I wanted to kind of go over, the Mount Rushmore type of thing, give my breakdown for that. And then, of course, I want to hear all of yours. What are your Mount Rushmores as far as the horror goes, horror space? Let me know down in the comments. But the image that I've seen kind of go around right now is an image of Pinhead, Chucky, Jigsaw, and Ghostface, right? Now, again, it's just an image. Also, an image like that is going to obviously garner some attention, right? Because people are going to be like, what? Like, these are like, and all that stuff. But again, I don't think that there's any right or wrong answers as far as like your Mount Rushmore goes. Right? Now, I do think out of all of those, the only one, again, in that Mount Rushmore image that's going around, I think the only one out of all of those is Ghostface. I think Ghostface should be out on the Mount Rushmore. And then after that, again, I think personally, now again, this is just, my thoughts, want to hear yours, so let me know down in the comments. But I think the like staple, like remove bias, remove our personal feelings and opinions and thoughts are, Jason, Michael, Freddy, and Ghostface, right? I think those are the four on your Mount Rushmore. And why is that? Well, let me tell you. Because not only did those four, icons in the horror space become icons and even beyond their respective franchise, right? Like Scream isn't Ghostface, right? It's not called Ghostface. It's called Scream. But when you think of Scream, you think of Ghostface, right? Ghostface is the face of the Scream franchise, right? Friday the 13th. It's not called Jason Voorhees. It's called Friday the 13th. Jason wasn't even the original killer. It was his mother, right? But what do we think about when we think of Friday the 13th? We think of Jason. Jason became the fixture, right? Nightmare on Elm Street. It's not called Freddy Krueger. It's called A Nightmare on Elm Street, right? But again, Freddy Krueger, Robert Englund even, right? Like, you could even do horror icon, like actors, right? Like Jason Hodder and stuff like that, but not get too far away, right? But point is, again, look at Halloween. It's not called Michael Myers. It's called Halloween, right? I mean, even all those titles, you could do different things. You could have different monsters and characters if you really wanted to, but no, you have the staple fixture. Right? You have Ghostface, you have Jason, you have Freddy, you have Michael, and they completely changed, revolutionized, and popularized the horror franchise. Right? You don't get a lot of these things, and even most of the predecessors to Jason or to Michael had Halloween night. Like, obviously, you can go down. I mean, you could make an argument, Psycho and all that other stuff, right? Because you have things that kind of sparked and started the horror genre and Nosferatu and all these other things, right? But I'm talking about like the four franchises that completely started a trend and revolutionized horror and completely just changed the game. It's those four franchises. Halloween was literally everything. Like there is no Scream. There is no Jason, right? There aren't these things. I mean, you could make an argument there wouldn't even be a Freddy Krueger if it wasn't for that, right? Like, so again, like John Carpenter and what he was able to do and how they were able to kind of, and Jamie Lee Curtis stuff, right? Like kind of setting the standard for horror and the slasher genre and having this like, shape this mythical being almost, right? That led into Jason. I mean, Friday the 13th, there's a whole documentary about it, how that was essentially trying to copy the success of Michael Myers and whatnot. And they wanted to kind of create their own, right? And their own story. And, that's how Jason kind of came to be. And so you had Jason and you watched that path and that journey, right? And then you move forward into Scream, right? And Scream came in at a time where slasher was looked at to be dead. Slashers were, you had all these different slashers that were coming out, and then you had just this hiatus where it was just like, if you're making a slasher, you're not doing anything. And then Scream came along and just relit everything. All of a sudden, everyone is trying. Think of how many horror just films, like, iconic, favorable horror films came because of Scream. And think of how many to this day copy and mirror and mask Scream series and shows and movies and all this stuff, right? I mean, you had Scream, and then all of a sudden you follow that up with, I Know What You Did Last Summer. You had Urban Legends, right? Like, you had all these horror franchises that stem from Scream and Ghostface. And then Friday the 13th kind of became the prototypical mythical monster movie in which you saw all these other, kind of inspired type of things. And Freddy really kind of set the tone, right? Again, you can look back into other horror films. Like, if you want to say, like, films, right? Like, you could look at things, like I said, like even The Exorcist, right? Really, like, paved way for the religious, paranormal, demonic type of films and stuff like that, right? Psycho was like the precursor for all these, Nosferatu, right? Like, you have all these iconic horror films, right, that you can use as like a Mount Rushmore template. But if we're talking about like the faces of horror, it is Jason, Michael, Freddy, and Ghostface, right? No particular order, whichever way you scale. My favorite horror franchise is Scream. And, I built this channel on the back of Scream, right? Like, so I think that's pretty obvious. But I'm a big Scream guy. I love the Scream franchise because, it's kind of the most realistic out of all of them. Sure, it's a movie, has movie logic, has some things that are unrealistic. But for the most part, it's pretty inherently just, we see that stuff every day. I personally lean towards the more realistic horror franchises than the more paranormal things, but that doesn't mean I don't love a good, I love a good Conjuring movie, I love a good, Possession movie, I love a good Exorcist movie, I love a good, Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, right? I love the icons as well. But to me, I just think that my Mount Rushmore is the same. I just think those four, just because as a history buff when it comes to horror and stuff, those were the ones that paved the way for everything else. But as always, this is a discussion. I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What is yours? What is your Mount Rushmore? I'd love to hear it. That being said, if you want to like this video, hit that like button. It helps me out. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel. What are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.